Hello, everybody, and thank you for your patience. I'm sorry we had a technical glitch, but we do really appreciate you being here. I'm Barb Ewing, CEO of the Youngstown Business Incubator, and I'd also like to introduce Chandler Fiffick from our team and Rory Kale, who will be jumping in and out throughout the course of the event. YBI, the Youngstown Business Incubator, is part of the fabric of Ohio's technology entrepreneurship program, known as the Entrepreneurial Services Program. We specifically support software companies, healthcare, and advanced manufacturing companies. YBI happens to be the home of America Makes, the National Additive Manufacturing Innovation Institute. You'll be hearing more about that later. We were recognized as the #1 university-affiliated incubator in the world in 2014, and more recently, we were recognized by a blogger by the name of Failery as one of the top 4 advanced manufacturing incubators in the world. In addition to our team that supports startups, we have a team of 5 engineers who work with both large and small industry partners, government partners like the Department of Defense, to help support the adoption of additive manufacturing and develop supply chains, support SBIR work, and really truly engage traditional manufacturers in advanced manufacturing technologies. Our goal for today is fairly simple. We are looking to develop new relationships, and our highest and best outcome for YBI would be that you all decide that Ohio, and specifically Northeast Ohio, would be a great place to start an advanced manufacturing company. But that's not the only win for us. We are always looking for new relationships for service providers for the work that we do, potential partners for the equipment that we control, partners for research and development, especially as we look at federal research opportunities and some technology that we control, and just really to grow our additive manufacturing ecosystem. We truly believe that this technology is the future, and we want to do everything that we can to help spur it and make it grow. For the most part, we're going to ask you to hold your questions until the end, but one of our speakers, Glenn Richardson, needs to jump to another meeting. So after he gets done speaking, we will open it up for questions, and then we'll go back to the traditional format where we'll do the questions at the end. And I would also like to thank our speakers, because I will forget to do that later, I'm sure. We're really grateful for you being here and looking forward to a great discussion. So with that, it is truly, truly my pleasure to introduce you all to Rich Wetzel. Rich was originally a YBI employee, came to us as an intern from Youngstown State University. And the company that he developed was our very first additive manufacturing exit, and I will allow him to tell that story. Rich, you want to take over from here, please?
Thanks, Barb. Hi, everyone. I'm going to pop on for a minute here, hop off video. I'm having some slow internet on my side, but thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to speak here today for this webcast, and thank you to Barb and the YBI staff for the invitation to speak. As Barb mentioned, my name is Rich Wetzel. I'm currently the Vice President at the Lanterman Group, where we develop workforce training for the additive manufacturing industry. Formerly the co-founder of Freshmade 3D, where we developed a secondary additive manufacturing process related to binder jetting, and we were acquired in 2021 by the X1 company. But today I'll be sharing some insights on 3 critical aspects of building a startup successfully in the additive manufacturing or advanced manufacturing space for those who are new to the startup journey. So those topics include knowing what problem you're trying to solve, why market research is more important than technology validation, and knowing when to get out, including long-term growth strategies versus taking investment. So each of these topics represent areas that I wish I had more knowledge of when I was launching my business 8 years ago. As a YBI portfolio company, we had the unique opportunity to learn from startup experts and gain access to resources that we wouldn't have available to us otherwise. So by the end of today's event, I'm hopeful that you'll have a much better understanding of how to launch an advanced manufacturing startup and an understanding of all the resources available to you. So with that, I'll go ahead and just dive in here. Firstly, we can talk about the importance of knowing what problem you're trying to solve. So identifying a clear problem is the cornerstone for any successful startup, and it's no exception for the advanced manufacturing industry. So considering the case of FreshMade 3D, when we first started, I'd say that we really didn't do a good job at this step. But thankfully, we had great mentors from YBI that helped guide us through the process and eventually identify a real gap in the industry where we were able to develop a viable solution. In the case of the Landerman Group, in my current role, the gap was identified in training and upskilling workforce members in additive manufacturing. So in both cases, that gap was our problem to solve. And often in the startup world, you'll hear you want to avoid creating a solution in search of a problem. And this is a common saying that was reinforced during my time at YBI and something that still resonates with me today. So, but going back to where I struggled, really was not thoroughly understanding our customers' pain points early on and looking at certain industry gaps, I think, too broadly. So when you think of identify that problem, it really needs to be validated by your target customers. And this can be done in a number of ways, including surveys, voice to customer interviews, industry forums, listening carefully to their challenges and needs, and really not being afraid to ask a bunch of questions. So in our early days, we conducted numerous one-on-one interviews with industry professionals, was really critical. And honestly, that's something that needs to remain true throughout the entire life of the business and not just at the start. So once you've identified that problem, you really need to align it with your vision and mission, which is key. And that alignment ensures that your startup remains focused and driven towards clear goals. So for us, our mission is to empower the workforce with skills needed for the future of manufacturing. So by addressing that training gap, we were able to stay true to our mission. So next, we'll talk a little bit about why market research is more crucial than just focusing on technology validation. And what I really mean by that is, imagine if you build this amazing piece of technology, but then you find out no one actually needs it. That's a huge problem. And in fact, a recent study from CV Insights states that 42% of startups fail because there's no need for their solution in the market. So it's not just about having cutting edge technology, it's about ensuring that there's demand for it. So starting with an understanding of the market demand, diving deep into what potential customers truly need and want, using those surveys, user focus groups, one-on-one interviews to gather those insights. This really helps you create a solution that people are actually excited about. And then next, let's talk about the competitor analysis. It's essential to know who you're up against. Look at what similar companies are doing and find the gaps you can fill. Tools like a SWOT analysis or Porter's 5 Forces can really be helpful here. And for instance, at the Landerman Group, we've realized that while there were many training offerings out there in additive manufacturing, few were focused on transferring critical skills to the learners. And these insights helped us position ourselves uniquely into the market. And then another critical step is customer segmentation, where you break down your potential market into specific groups based on characteristics like industry, company size, or even geographic location. And this can help tailor your marketing and sales strategies to meet the unique needs of each segment. So for us, segmenting by industries like aerospace, automotive, and defense allowed us to create customized training modules that resonated with each group specifically. So lastly, I'll discuss just kind of the tricky decision of knowing when to get out and balancing long-term growth strategies with taking investment. This is like choosing between playing the long game and taking the shortcut that comes with its own risks. And I can say this was something that my team struggled with early on. Long-term growth strategies involve scaling your operations and expanding your product lines at a sustainable pace. This approach helps you build a loyal customer base and generate steady revenue streams. For example, at the Landerman Group, we've gradually added more advanced training programs in delivery formats such as online learning and extended reality as our customers' needs evolved. And this steady growth has helped us maintain strong relationships with our clients and continuously improve our offerings. And this goes back to the previous point of continuously just listening to your customers long after you've identified that initial problem and understanding of the market. So in terms of funding for long-term growth, we've leveraged cost-effective resources like Upwork and the Ohio Technology Internship Program, as well as non-dilutive government funding from Small Business Innovation Research Grants, which I believe will be covered in detail coming up. But in the case of FreshMade 3D, we went the investment route because after understanding the problem and the market, we were able to identify a potential buyer and needed funding to boost our development efforts. So however, this can mean giving up some control and potentially facing pressure to deliver quick returns. So different types of investors like venture capitalists or angel investors come with their own set of expectations. So weighing the pros and cons is really crucial there. So for instance, if you bring in a venture capitalist, be prepared for aggressive growth targets and significant input on your business decisions. So planning the exit strategy from the start is also essential. Think about the different ways you can exit from through mergers or acquisitions, or even going public with an IPO or selling to another company. Each has its own benefits. For instance, merging with another company that shares your values can help preserve your mission while providing the resources needed for growth. So to make these decisions, you really need to assess your startup's readiness for investment, create a balanced growth plan that includes potential exit scenarios, and seek advice from those mentors and industry experts. At the Lanterman Group, we found that having clear roadmaps helps us stay focused to make informed decisions about when to seek investment or continue growing organically. So hopefully by carefully considering these factors, you can choose the path that best aligns with your startup goals and ensures any long-term success. So to summarize, building a successful advanced manufacturing startup requires a clear understanding of the problem you're solving, thorough market research, and strategic decision-making regarding growth and investment. With that, I hope these insights will help you navigate your entrepreneurial journey. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of the event. Barb, I'll go ahead, or Chandler, turn it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Rich. We sincerely appreciate you being a part of this today. You are a great advocate for entrepreneurship. It's now my pleasure to introduce our very good friend, Glenn Richardson from Jobs Ohio. That is a nonprofit organization that supports economic development in the state of Ohio. Glenn is the director of advanced manufacturing and aerospace and has been a great friend to YBI in a multitude of different ways. So Glenn, would you like to give an overview of what Jobs Ohio has to offer?
Yes, thank you. Barb, thank you to you and the YBI team for this forum and for all the additive and advanced manufacturing initiatives that you bring forward in the state of Ohio. Much appreciated. As you said, my name is Glenn Richardson. I am the managing director for advanced manufacturing and aerospace at Jobs Ohio. Jobs Ohio is the state's private nonprofit entity responsible for economic development. We were a startup a few years back, but we kind of think we're a mature company now. We've been in business about 10 years since we received funding from the legislature. So I've been with Jobs Ohio just about 10 years. So I came on, I was the 30th employee just about a year after they got started, and come out of industry with approximately 3 decades of experience in engineering and operations. My role at Jobs Ohio is to help companies in Ohio to grow and to work to attract companies to Ohio that can benefit from our extensive manufacturing ecosystem. Barb asked me to speak today to you about Ohio's competitive edge, so let me give you some high-level statistics to frame the discussion. First, we are a manufacturing state with innovation in our DNA. Things like the automobile electric starter, which really changed the trajectory for the automobile, the rubber tire, the cash register, the pop-top can, the airplane, just to name a few, were invented in Ohio. Today, we have the 3rd largest manufacturing workforce in the nation. And when you compare that to our overall population being the 7th largest state, we are punching above our weight in manufacturing. We have over 80 colleges and university campuses turning out somewhere around 18,000 engineers and technicians. But we continue to be a net exporter of talent today. So this is really an opportunity for those of us in the economic development world to create more opportunities for those folks that study here, that may live here, have lived here, to stay here. In addition to that, we have fantastic research institutes, including NASA Glenn, and also the Neil Armstrong Test Laboratory, Battelle, Wright-Patterson's Air Force Research Labs, several research institutes, as well as we are engaged in a number of USA manufacturing institutes, the first one being America Makes right there in Youngstown, but also associated with LIFT that started here in Ohio, as well as IACME. A LIFT focused on lightweight materials. IACME also focused on lightweight materials with a focus on composites. And our engagement with these entities helps to ensure that Ohio maintains their position at the forefront of innovation. Ohio's committed also committed investments of over $300 million over 5 years in support of innovation districts in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. And these are focused on medical breakthroughs, but also medical equipment, IT, and STEM graduates. The state of Ohio has established these programs to support our markets with innovation. So our Jobs Ohio has done this with the 3 Cs. The state of Ohio has worked to establish a like program for support of innovation districts in other locations. So you'll hear more about these as they get established. State of Ohio also has an entrepreneurial service provider program. This is really important to you all. To significantly increase technology-based entrepreneurial commercialization. Each ESP represents a coordinated network of high-value services and assistance providers that is easily accessible to entrepreneurs and tech-based companies. The partners include Jumpstart in Cleveland, the Cincinnati Tech in Cincy, Rev1 Ventures in Columbus, Tech Growth Ohio in the southeastern part of the state, and the Entrepreneur Center in Dayton. And of course, there's the internationally recognized Youngstown Business Incubator right there in Youngstown. Ohio also has a growing VC community, also very important for startups and early stage companies, that is looking to invest in tech-based companies. And this has been amped up with 2 recent program announcements by the Ohio Department of Development. Last August, the DeWine administration announced making available over $110 million to support Ohio tech-based companies. 2 funds were established, the Ohio Early Stage Fund, Focus Fund, and the Ohio Venture Fund. These are available to increase the amount of early stage capital invested in Ohio technology-based companies and to accelerate the growth of high potential companies and create a climate that supports development, retention, and attraction of technology companies in Ohio. The Early Stage Focus Fund provides capital to professionally managed investment funds to support early stage technology companies that are women or minority owned, or based in an area that has been underserved by venture capital. The Ohio Venture Fund provides investment capital to prevent professionally managed investment funds to support Ohio technology companies with early stage capital through Series A. In addition to financial support, Ohio is also very focused on workforce development. This includes the Intel commitment to increase STEM grads by 45,000 over 10 years, the administration's support of industry sector partnerships, the Ohio Technology Internship Program that was mentioned by Rich, the Ohio Tech Cred Program. And also, Jobs Ohio has a number of programs focused on workforce, including Find Your Ohio, our Talent Acquisition Services Program, and our Workforce Development Grant Program. At the end of the day, you need money and intellectual resources to be successful. You can find both of those in Ohio. Jobs Ohio, while primarily focused on mature companies with over 10 million in revenue, we also have leaned to the right to help support entrepreneurs, the heart of innovation. We've created a capital growth fund that is focused on scale-up companies, Series B raise or later, with strategic technologies in healthcare, IT, advanced manufacturing, and aerospace. The Jobs Ohio Growth Capital Program can participate in convertible debt and direct equity on terms that are materially the same as those of the lead investor. The program investment amount is generally 1-to-1 aligned with lead investor commitments, and as a sidecar investment can take up to 20% of the current investment round. So clearly a very important program for us and for how we are trying to work to support the startup community. But Jobs Ohio doesn't stop there. We also can be helpful in connecting businesses with non-financial resources necessary to be successful. You can contact us directly or work through our regional partner network, including the new Lake to River Regional Economic Development Organization in YBI's region, and also Team NEO supporting the 14 counties around Cleveland. We have 5 other partners that cover the rest of the state. Whether it's through those regions or directly with Jobs Ohio, we're committed to helping you find what you need in Ohio to be successful. So in summary, Ohio is a business-friendly state, has key programs to support entrepreneurial success, has a keen focus on workforce development, has a growing VC community, and a unique and successful economic development organization in Jobs Ohio and our regional partners. All key ingredients to entrepreneurial success in Ohio.
So at this point, I would like to introduce Ron Stubblefield, who's a Senior Program Manager for Parallax Advanced Research and the Ohio Aerospace Institute. They are a great partner to not only YBI, but to all of the state of Ohio through the FAST program, where they work with early stage businesses and researchers to support SBIRs and STTRs across all government agencies. So Ron, if you would like to take over from here.
All right, great. Thanks, Barb. And so as I have this conversation and talk about the SBIR and STTR programs, while talking through why you should come to Ohio and work with us to leverage this to grow your company, I want to step back and go, how on earth can you fund your small business in the first place? You can bootstrap, but the question goes, how many of us really have that money? Especially when we're talking about advanced manufacturing, where it becomes truly expensive just to go around funding for proof of concept, much less everything else you need. Getting a facility, getting equipment, getting people who have to know how to even help you do some of the initial build outs. Revenue from operations. You got a new product. You're still trying to validate if it's worth anything. So you don't have revenue there. Debt business loans. I'm pretty confident we all believe our ideas are valuable, but until you validate your collateral, no one's giving you a debt or business loan. And equity investments, and as Dr. Shane will speak to later, there's some things you need to materially do to de-risk the investment first from a technology perspective, but more importantly, a market and business model perspective first, before someone's really comfortable investing in you. Which means you're going to go to the point going, how can I do anything if these other 4 pathways aren't available to me? And this is where the federal government comes in with small business innovative research and small business technology transfer grants. And so 11 agencies have these type of programs. You see them from the Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, Energy, NSF, NASA, USDA, and the like. And what's critical to understand if you're thinking about doing stuff in advanced manufacturing is here are the agencies that actually really play hard and heavy. Department of Defense does a lot of work on advanced manufacturing, but so does the USDA. NASA does a lot of work. So does the Department of Energy. EPA does a lot of work around advanced manufacturing technologies too. And depending on what you're doing with Department of Commerce may be of interest to you with NOAA. The moral of the story, it's going, a lot of these agencies have funding programs to help advanced manufacturing companies, as most people don't know. And in the context of Northeast Ohio, NASA Glenn is right here. And they're the largest funder within NASA for SBIR activities. Department of Defense, U.S. Air Force AFRL runs the cyber program for the United States Air Force and partners with Parallax and YBI to get companies through the pipeline to go after those opportunities. To go back to a point Glenn made, you have finance and technical. Every state will tell you they have both. And I'm not going to say other states don't do it. What I'll say Ohio does is you integrate them both so that it's a holistic solution for you as an entrepreneur. That's why if somebody goes through the 3-part SBIR process, you have program partners like the Ohio Aerospace Institute, like Parallax Advanced Research, like YBI, who are with you every step of the way. We'll help you find the opportunities to apply for and then put the applications together. Then as you go through feasibility and concept development, you've got the technical advisement and resources to actually get that done. As you go to phase 2, to go to level show that you're viable and to really get your stuff from proof of concept to prototype, you still got a whole bunch of partnerships with us to get that done. and as you time to transition out from phase 2 to phase 3 for full-scale commercialization. We have our connections, plus can get you connected to follow-on capital to keep growing and become a successful business that you dream of. We do it as an integrated, holistic way. That's our competitive advantage. And it's for that reason is why Ohio is a top 10 state in SBIR phase 1 applicants. And thanks to new partnerships between OAI and YBI to dive deeper into advanced manufacturing, we're confident we will surpass New York and Colorado and become a top 5 state by 2025. And so when we think about who's the right type of applicant for this program, I want you to think yourself in one of two ways. Are you an early stage company that's just too early for private investment? Or are you an established business that's looking to go into new product and project lines? And you're playing in energy, healthcare, medical devices, IT, aerospace, agricultural, material science, advanced manufacturing. And there's a pathway that you can go that says, I have potential, great commercialization potential, and I can help advance a government agency's mission, that you are the ideal person to go ahead and do this. And why should you seek it? First off, it's money. I've given you seed capital to get started. That's not a loan, so it means you don't have to repay anything. It's non-dilutive, meaning I don't have to give up ownership in my company. Second, it gives you credibility and prestige. You recognize that once you do sort of these things here, people going, you've won a grant. It makes it a lot easier to go after and get matching funds. It makes you get quick partnerships. It helps people take you more seriously. And particularly because of the type of connections it provides. When you apply for a SBIR grant, industry experts, both technical and commercial, review your applications. So think about this. You have a committee of 9 people who have led big companies here, have been the chief engineers designing these things, and they say your product is good and your proposal is a good plan. Then that makes it a lot easier to go to an investor afterwards, and they'll know this going, okay, it's solid. You also have a chance to go in with, especially if you think about DoD, if I get in and do good work there, there's a chance to then get sole source contracts from them immediately afterwards, a pathway for business. And then finally, many of these agencies have their own commercial assistance programs that go above and beyond SBIR, STTR funding to help you with that workforce development needs, helps you with further scaling up manufacturing, helps you with supply chain connections. So these are the pathways. Why? And when you leverage this with the type of technical assistance that YBI can provide, the type of technical commercialization assistance, especially in aerospace and defense, that OAI can provide, and the type of things we can reach to our ESP partners in Northeast Ohio, this is why you should come here. We can help you as a true come here. We can help you get all the expertise you need, SBIR, and beyond. So why are we able to do all this? Because it's your taxpayer dollars at work. We're funded by the United States Small Business Administration and the state of Ohio to support you. And we often say our taxpayer dollars, we're not getting anything out of it. Get your money's worth here. And you can do that by contacting me. My information is on the screen. I also made a point to leave it in the chat. And I believe Barb and company will be sharing this slides deck with you afterwards. So here's my ask. If you want to talk more about the SBIR program, reach out to me. And second, if you're really considering where you need to be next for your business, don't just consider Ohio, consider Youngstown, especially if you're playing in the advanced manufacturing space.
Thank you. Thank you for the shout out as well, too. I'll take them all day long. All right, so we've talked about public funding. It's all just as critical to talk about raising private investment. And here to talk about that is Scott Shane, who is the managing director of the Comeback Capital Fund and also one of YBI's entrepreneurs in residence. He specializes in helping our companies raise private investment. Scott, why don't you take it from here, please?
Thank you very much. So I am talking about a very specific topic, which is raising a pre-seed investment round for your advanced manufacturing venture. And I'm going to focus very heavily on the fact that this is very early in the life of the company and that you're raising money from external investors. I think it's really important to tell anybody ever starting to raise money for a company what it means to look at that company from the perspective of the other side of the table from investors. You should always remember that investors, venture capitalists, are themselves financial intermediaries. They get money from their own limited partners and they put that money to work for their limited partners to make money. They must beat alternative investment returns to get money. So always when you look at investors raising, looking at your company, they're looking for a financial return. A rule of thumb here, if given alternative investments over a 10-year life of a venture fund, that fund must produce 3 times the capital that went into it for that venture fund to be successful. Now, this is important because of a concept called a power law distribution in terms of outcomes. As much as you think your venture, your startup may be great, I can tell you that 70% of all venture capital investments will go to zero. That's 70% of those companies will lose all of the money invested in them. 10% of those companies that venture capitalists invest in will return nothing more than the capital invested. About 10% will return 2 to 3 times the capital invested, and 10% of those ventures provide the 10x returns on the capital invested. Now, what's important here is if you do the math based on the previous slide and this slide, every venture capitalist worth their salt will look at your company and need to believe that that company will return 30 times their money going in. 10% successful, creating a 30x return overall. There's no way that those investors will know in advance which ones are going to be winners because they would only invest in them if they knew. So investors have to believe 100% of the companies that they select will return 30x or more. This means it's really hard to get money from these investors. There's a basic selection formula that's going on. A startup must have a great founding team times a huge market size times a significant value proposition times strong traction times easy scalability times an attractive business model times a strong moat. I want to emphasize a couple things here. If anything is a zero, the entire equation is a zero. So huge market size, great value proposition, etc., with a lousy founding team is going to be a zero. And the adjectives matter here. Great increases results way more than good, which does way more than fair. So investors are looking for great across multiple dimensions, and that is very hard to find. What makes a great founding team? I want to be very clear and point out a couple things that are just paramount. One, deep domain expertise. If you do not know a customer problem deeply in an industry, you're not worth venture capital investing. You have to have the ability to produce that solution, build the device, code the software, etc. You have to be coachable and understand feedback from other people, and you've got to be incentivized with ownership, not salary. There's big problems with investors not liking startups where people are expecting to get paid a good salary because it doesn't work. Market size. Got to have a huge market for your business. The rule of thumb is a minimum of $1 billion, but orders of magnitude bigger are better. 10 billion, 20 billion, 50 billion, $100 billion market. Those markets have to be growing and not shrinking. Value proposition. I think this is the number one thing that I always emphasize, and I think people don't pay enough attention to. Customers of companies pay money to have a problem solved. That's the only thing they're giving up money for. Problems are things measured in terms of cost, pain, other problems. A customer will buy a painkiller, not a vitamin. My analogy always is you're flying through O'Hare Airport, you have forgotten your Tylenol, you will pay money at the exorbitant prices in O'Hare Airport to get a Tylenol, but you will not pay for the vitamins that you forgot. You've got to have a tremendous value proposition. Value proposition is the ratio of the problem removal to the customer amount spent. So thinking about this very simply, a customer saves $100,000 buying a product, spending $10,000 a year on your product, gives an ROI of 10x, you stand a chance. You give a marginal slight benefit, you're not going to get any customers. Okay, traction. Investors will not invest in companies that have no traction. Traction is measured only by sales revenue. All other metrics for this are wrong. This is a function of time. A 2-year-old playing chopsticks on the piano is a prodigy. A person my age playing chopsticks on the piano is a bad piano player. A startup that gets to revenue in 6 months is fantastic. A startup that gets a little bit of revenue in 5 years is not desirable. Scalability. Startups have to grow very fast to justify investment. Very, very fast. The rule of thumb is that people are looking at companies that will get to $50 million in sales in 5 to 7 years, right? That is very fast. Scalability, the key factor is the cost of producing $1 of sales. If it costs 1 cent to produce an additional $1 of sales, it's highly scalable. If it costs 99 cents to produce an additional $1 of sales, it's not scalable. So if you're going to have a large amount of capital and labor costs to produce an additional $1 of sales, you're not scalable and investors won't back you. Business model. Business model is how a company generates revenue. And the thing that you have to understand with your advanced manufacturing business is some business models are simply more attractive than others. If you sell something that has recurring revenue, it is more attractive than transactional revenue. Big ticket items are more attractive because they're easier to sell than small ticket items, because you got to get an awful lot of customers and it's very hard to get high volume customers, small ticket items. Things that are linear, that you keep getting a little bit more, are much more attractive than binary outcomes. This is why investors get a little bit frightened by investing in certain medical outcomes with FDA approval, because the outcomes are so binary. High switching costs. If your customers cannot switch, that is a more attractive business model than if they can switch easily. Unit economics that are more financially attractive with high margins, better than worse unit economics. Now, it may be that advanced manufacturing, it is harder for you to find a great business model. You have to find one, though, to get investment capital.
Got just
Final
a
thing,
gentle 2-minute
Yeah,
reminder.
absolutely. The final item here is a moat. A moat is the barrier to competitors doing the same thing. If you have no barrier to your competitors doing the same thing as you, you get no investment. No moat means no investment. You've got to have a barrier to competition. 3 examples of better moats. An observable moat that investors can see is much better than one they cannot see. So a patent is better than customer service, which you can't know in advance. Hard to replicate moat. A trade secret's going to be much better than having hustle, because lots of people have hustle. Structural competitive advantage, much better than something that's not structural. Example, I have a cheaper cost to produce, much better than I've chosen to price lower, because somebody else can choose to price just like you. That's it. And I will unshare, and I guess you're taking questions at the end, so I'll just go on mute.
Thank you, Scott. And I have all kinds of questions for you. So with that, we will get started with YBI's Vice President for Advanced Manufacturing. Stephanie Gaffney leads a team of 5 engineers who do work, as I said earlier, with government and industry partners. And she'll talk about the work that the relationships we're trying to build.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Barb, and I appreciate talking to everyone today. So I just want to talk about a couple of the programs and what YBI does outside of the entrepreneurship round. You've kind of heard about YBI as a business incubator helping companies in the startup space, but we also have a manufacturing silo where we help existing manufacturers and have a very deep bench and knowledge of manufacturers in the industry who's doing what in traditional manufacturing, as well as additive manufacturing. So we offer a lot of support for manufacturers. And again, that translates to more relationship, supply chain development for our portfolio and additive manufacturing startups. So YBI is home to 3 major resources that support manufacturers as well as startups. So our team internally here can help you with prototyping, design, AM education, material selection. We have technical expertise in-house to help you with the advancement of your product or whatever you're trying to develop. The National Additive Manufacturing Institute, America Makes, resides on America Makes campus. So you're going to hear from Kimberly, I believe, coming up after myself. So I don't want to steal any her thunder about what they do, but again, a very large resource for companies located, within Northeast Ohio. And we also have the Smart Manufacturing Cluster of Northeast Ohio, which comprises of a lot of key stakeholders within the state of Ohio. The Advanced Polymers Clusters, Team NEO, eventually we'll rope manufacturers into that, but they have generated a lot of productivity, increased innovation, and they have been a connector throughout Northeast Ohio for startups as well as existing companies. Also within YBI, we have support for manufacturers through specialties. We have equipment in-house that we offer 3D printing services, reverse engineering, 3D scanning. We understand that companies have, new startup companies have limited access to a lot of varying technologies. They're either cost prohibitive or they don't have time to, train themselves to utilize this technology. And those are all technologies that exist within the doors of the incubator. So solid modeling and design, sourcing of products, 3D scanning. And we specialize in plastics, thermosets, metal casting, binder jetting for the foundry industry. And we also have a large amount of equipment that can be utilized within our doors. So YBI itself, along with its partners, has access to about $18 million in advanced manufacturing equipment that you would be able to utilize, at your fingertips for reduced or subsidized rates. We work with the state of Ohio, Jobs Ohio, to get equipment in advanced ceramics. So if that's something that's of interest to you, we've worked with local universities to get IRDCP dollars to acquire metal 3D printers. We have EOS M290s, M400s, Velos, so a lot of different access to equipment that would not normally be obtainable. We also have a lot of support here. You heard from Ron with the SBA FAST program. We have a contract and working agreement with Parallax Advanced Research out of Dayton, Ohio. So a lot of synergies happening there with data analytics as well as SBIR's TTR program. We have internal software that will help companies with their market studies and reports, as well as looking for funding opportunities internally for yourselves to grow. So we have partnered with a company called Turbo Innovates, as well as GeoFlow, which will help do some supply chain development, some data mining, and we have grants for additive manufacturing subsidized services. So if there are particular projects or things that you want to tackle internally that touch advanced manufacturing, there are programs that we have that will subsidize those, 1-to-1. As I said, YBI has done a lot of supply chain development. We have worked with the Army through a program called Army Now, where the Army was looking for suppliers and manufacturers to fill hard to source opportunities. We connected those people to, we connected the Army to some of our smaller portfolio companies as well as large companies, Goodyear Tire and Rubber, Schwabel. So we work outside of the manufacturing into food space as well. Valoric is the manufacturer of seamless metal pipe for the oil and gas industry. So a lot of projects that we've done. I would like to just take some time and talk about some anecdotal examples of things that we've done, so you can see how we've related to our small, our startups. So we can act as an STTR partner. So we have the programs to help identify opportunities out there within the DoD. And, some of those might be STTRs. And if you're not familiar, an SBIR is the small business applying on their own. An STTR is a small business applying in conjunction with a research partner. So whether that be a university or another research entity like Oak Ridge National Labs, but we are able to act as an STTR research partner within the advanced manufacturing space. So we had a company that just came to us, Alpha Micron, small startup. I believe they have 3 members of their team, and they were looking to submit a grant on 3D printed lenses for the Army. And we were able to utilize some equipment that we had in-house, do the R&D for them, be the research partner, and then we will help them grow that into a phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 opportunity. We do have some IIoT, Industrial Internet of Things grants, and we have been able to engage our in-house portfolio companies. So we had a company, Aiden Health, that we were able to tie their technology with one of our local manufacturers, Center Street, to integrate and adopt. So we feature them as a provider of a solution to a lot of our existing manufacturers that we are interacting with. We have another one, a company called Harmony, that is doing software, intelligent software for machining platforms and systems. So we've integrated their startup technology with a lot of manufacturers for making their equipment smart and, speaking to the front offices, predictive maintenance, things like that. So another great story that came out of programming that we currently do. One of our companies that we currently have now, which is a growing successful company, Juggerbot 3D, if anyone has ever heard of them, two guys that came out of Youngstown State University working in industry. And, we're looking to develop a 3D printer for industrial applications. We worked with them in a partnership through the state of Ohio through a program called AMP. When we work with a company or even a startup, one of the things that we always write into them is we will look for opportunities to help them gain non-dilutive capital and grow. And we did that with Juggerbot and Goodyear. So Goodyear Tire and Rubber was looking to advance non-pneumatic tires, so airless tires, and they were definitely falling behind in the industry in that space. And we worked
just
to
a
get
gentle 2-minute reminder.
Okay,
Awkward job.
this will be my last anecdotal story. We work with them to basically achieve $1 million. We won $1 million award, but we roped in one of our small businesses, and they did all the material development and mid-volume production and help with the design with Goodyear. What ended up coming out of that was Goodyear was able to then develop the tire, test it, and license it to John Deere, who now uses that exact design and model on mowers for golf courses. So cool story, but I know they still continue that relationship with Goodyear Tire and Rubber, and then YBI does move on and look for the next opportunity. So always looking for opportunities for our startups to partner with larger industry, to help them grow their technology and create new meaningful relationships for them. So my contact information is on here. I am part of the YBI Advanced Manufacturing team, and I also included Daniel, one of our engineering program managers, information on here. So did I make it, Chandler?
Thank you, Steph.
I could go on forever.
I think I saw Quentin was on, so from Aiden Health.
Okay. So maybe at the
but-
end, if we have any extra time, he can go into a little bit deeper detail on that story and how we were able to assist. So
Okay.
Not to put you on the spot.
Sorry.
Absolutely, it's great stuff. Yeah.
All right, and last but not least, Kimberly Gibson, who is the Director of Ecosystems for America Makes, is going to talk about how America Makes and the institutes as a whole can support innovation and entrepreneurship.
Hello, everybody. I can't see myself, but that's okay. I hope that you can see me. I'm Kimberly Gibson. I am the Ecosystem Director at America Makes here in Youngstown, Ohio. And boy, like being on this call and listening to everyone who's come before me, I mean, I'm reminded of just what an amazing place to do business that we live in Ohio and in Youngstown in particular, but all of Northeast Ohio especially, but all of Ohio. It's really amazing how many resources there are for you as a small business. And I too have a lot of questions for the other speakers. So if you guys don't ask questions, I think I think we all have questions for each other. Well, to talk to you a little bit about America Makes is the National Institute for Additive Manufacturing. And this institute was created in 2012 by a congressional act to create a national network of institutes that were focused on making sure that the innovation and discovery that was coming out of our universities and the private sector was advanced through the valley of death to get it to commercialization. And in this case, there were a handful of institutes let at that time. America Makes was the first, you heard someone say, and the way we function is as a public-private partnership. And our membership consists of universities, it consists of government agencies such as the Department of Energy, the Department of Defense, the Department of Commerce, NASA. We have a lot of different, and of course, not just the Department of Defense, but individual branches inside the Department of Defense, such as the Defense Logistics Agency, the Army, the Space Force, the Air Force, the Marines. So everybody's got some manufacturing technology that they care about. And when you take a look at our membership, you're going to find that we also have very large prime defense contractors. Because this is a defense-funded institute, there's a whole lot of activities that occur that one company, even a company, a very large prime defense contractor, wouldn't want to take on a challenge by themselves. So at the Institute, this public-private partnership consists of us working together to solve problems that are a little bit too big for any one of us. In so doing, we also have, of our membership that are companies, 73% are small businesses. Not a surprise, right? When you think about innovation across the board, it's always a small company that innovates. In fact, patents are filed 16 times the rate of large businesses by small businesses. So that's where it's at. So as the ecosystem director at America Makes, what does that mean? So we have 3 pillars at America Makes. The first pillar of activity is technology development. It's pretty easy, just what it sounds like. Pre-competitive technology development, where everybody comes together, everybody puts a little bit of their money in, the government puts a little bit of money in, and we all take our own background, IP, intellectual property, kind of throw it in the mix and work on problems together. The second pillar, and we have a tech roadmap. I'll tell you about that in a minute. The aspect of what comes out of that is a technology roadmap. And this technology roadmap is worked on by industry leaders. And what we do is we have, different swim lanes, whether it's materials or software, or maybe there's a data problem. So these professionals across the globe, really, with a focus on American competitiveness, come together to decide what the priority is, which problem should we solve right now, and then those priorities bubble up. The government who gives us the money takes a look at those priorities, and then we create project funding calls based on those priorities that are industry driven. So America Makes is the voice of industry in that way. So that's the first pillar, is technology development. The second pillar of America Makes is education and workforce development. we like to say we do K to gray. So we of course focus on, younger students, but we also do tailored training assets for incumbent workers. So a lot of folks that need retrained on these advanced technologies. So we exist as an organization that creates those assets and we share them broadly. We don't do the training. It's a train the trainer model. So national assets deployed locally. The third pillar, and I realize I just glossed over a really big thing, EWD, but the third pillar is ecosystem, and that's me. That's pretty much everything else that isn't tech development or EWD. So what does that mean? That means making sure that the small businesses who are in the supply chain are able to either become suppliers, level up through training, level up through access to technology funding that can either enhance their product, whether that's an SBIR, such as we heard earlier, or an STTR, which is a work with the university, or it's something that that small business wants to do itself. America Makes has various funding programs, and in some of these they're smaller amounts of money, but a quick burn. 6 months, 8 months, get it in, get it over with. You either do it yourself, and it allows you to take that money, prove something out, and then you can become more investable, which is what I believe Scott was talking about. So take that little bit of money from us, aligned with the swim lanes and the tech roadmap that we have already developed from our membership across the board, and then you become very attractive for investment, not just by venture capital or family offices, but also by those large companies. And we've had a number of companies, small businesses that were involved in our ecosystem who have been purchased by larger companies. So again, those things happen all the time. So that's the way we work inside the ecosystem, is really about taking those assets, those training assets, the technology roadmap, the government funding and government interest, and combining that together, building relationships within OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, across OEMs, and sector relationships. So when you think about medical, automotive, oil and gas, also, of course, defense and aerospace, and mixing up those technological priorities, as well as public policy priorities that they may have. So that's what the Institute does. So we build those relationships. And so if our members get connections, not just among themselves across the nation, but connections with globally minded companies. Many of our companies, we do have 14% have some foreign ownership. Think of a US company, a company that's maybe founded in the UK, but has a very strong presence in America. They can apply for membership under certain conditions and receive that. We also want, as that, creating access to top problem solvers in the world, really, and putting funding underneath those sets of problems that we think is important. We really have a collaborative environment here. The name of the game is teaming. We build teams on, challenging problem sets to pull you forward, working with folks like YBI, working with folks like OAI, who you've heard from, and, helping as a small business to pull you forward to the next level that you need to be at to get more investment, or to just take your project to the next level. I guess I'll say in general, I'm wrapping up that access to an institute like this in your hometown, it's really a national asset. And I honestly can't imagine this institute being anywhere else. Ohio is ground zero for additive manufacturing in this nation. And, having YBI as our partner over the last 12 years, down in the basement of our building, you're going to see a picture of Barb and a whole lot of other people cutting a ribbon to create this place. So this place exists because of relationships like the one we have with YBI in the state of Ohio, Jobs Ohio. And I'm excited to hear your questions about how we can all work together a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. You guys are great partners. So last but not least, a little bit about YBI's entrepreneurship services. I am actually taking Chandler's job in this. She is the director of our Evolve Technology Program and supported by the ESP program that we referenced earlier and that Glenn touched on. To give you a sense of the type of startups that we've worked with, we've already mentioned Aiden Manufacturing. I know them originally as Aiden Health, which is doing AI work for advanced manufacturing. We're working with another company that's based in California that does big data and uses AI to create a database for searching the World Wide Web to help identify supply chain relationships, potential customers, do all types of searches at the touch of a finger, taking out most of the time that you would spend doing typical Google searches. We've got a successful woman-owned business that is in advanced sensors. She also has a $1 million plus contract with the Department of Defense, as well as her commercial products. One of the products that is business to consumer rather than business to business is Fitz Frames. It's a 3D printed eyeglass company that was founded in California, but the manufacturing is done in Youngstown, and they just secured a round of investments, so they will be ramping up shortly. Stephanie alluded to Juggerbot 3D, which is an original equipment manufacturer for both medium to large scale additive manufacturing equipment. They're projecting a $4 million in revenue this year, as well as having a $4 million contract with the Air Force to build a large scale additive manufacturing machine. And last but not least, one last company is a software company. Tailored Metals came to us from El Paso, and they are developing software to help smooth out the difficulties associated with printing in metals, that complexity that you have from having to understand both the machine you're working on and the metals that you're working with. So those are just a sampling of the types of companies that we work with, but it gives you a sense that we try to be ubiquitous and touch all different parts of the advanced manufacturing industry, but specifically additive manufacturing. The backbone of that program is our entrepreneurs and residents, technical and business experts like Scott, who know their subject matter very well and are supported by our programming in order to provide direct hands-on support to the companies that they work with to try to get them from one milestone to the next. We're very clearly focused on getting a company to understand what they need to do in order to succeed, rather than that constant spin that you often see when left unsupervised. So we truly value the work of our EIRs. We also provide marketing support, legal support. We do have a small pot of non-dilutive funding that's available. Great facilities. Currently have a 65,000 square foot facility specifically for additive manufacturing, and are working on a second one that would be about 130,000 square feet. And we are hoping to fill that up with companies that have direct contracts with the Department of Defense to support an innovation hub program that we've got pending with the Ohio Department of Development. We've been, I think, forthright in telling you that we always hope that the companies that we're talking to will eventually come to not only Northeast Ohio, but Youngstown specifically. But we do have some sources and some ways to work with companies that are not ready to make that jump. So if you've heard something today that you think is of interest and that you would be like to pursue to see if there's a relationship to be had, by all means, please feel free to reach out to us. Right now, we are working under a Small Business Administration grant, an award that we won last year that allows us to support additive manufacturing companies really anywhere in the company, especially in the SBIRS TTR space, but we can do work in other areas as well. As I mentioned earlier, we will be reaching out to you. We'd like feedback on this program. We'd like to know what other topics you'd like to hear about. We are very interested in trying to find out if there are research topics that you would be interested in pursuing with us, and truly just building out this network and creating the relationships for long-term growth. It may take a while for some of these things to develop, but we understand this is a long game and hope that you have heard something that's of interest to you. So we can jump into the questions. I will ask Quentin, would you like to comment on your relationship with Center Street and just how that's unfolding, or is there something else that you think would be of value?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. So we're really now Aiden, not just Aiden Health. So
Yeah, I'm
artificial.
sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's just
I
because
don't
I think
change anything
we-
easily.
we've seen a resurgence in interest in this in manufacturing. I think, quite frankly, because of ChatGPT, right? It's raised an awareness of the power of AI and gotten people to start using that, even if there's not a large language model. So what we're looking at doing with a local company, a 3D printer, is really understanding how to mine their data, right? And at YSU, there's a whole data mine program, and we're talking to the leadership of that program and becoming a growing footprint there as well. So we're really excited about that focus and really putting some foundation in for this 3D printer to take advantage of all this data that they're building and having it as a strategic and critical asset to improve their manufacturing and production capabilities as they're going through that. Right now they have the data, but it's just there and not being leveraged to the extent it can. And the whole idea is to use AI to kind of drive the kind of future of their organization. So that's a quick summary of what we're going up against.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Quentin. And I will someday catch on to the new name.
Shorter.
All right. Well, before I start asking my questions, are there any questions from the audience? And yes, Janelle, we will send out the recording, correct, Chandler?
Yeah, we can send it out.
Yep, absolutely.
Just give us a little bit of time to get it edited so it can be pretty for you, but we will send it out. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, feel free to put in the chat or unmute yourselves. We are on time, so we have about 13 minutes until 3 o'clock.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for hosting this. I joined late, so I didn't get to catch all of it. But my question is, I'm in cosmetics and personal care manufacturing, and we're also looking to see how we can use AI in advanced manufacturing to automate the process of like creating formulas, developing formulas, things like that. Is my industry something that you guys are working with, or is it more for other industries?
I'll answer that. If you are looking to use advanced manufacturing technologies for whatever industry, we certainly want to take a look at that. And we have other programs that we haven't touched on today, but we've certainly within the context of our women's entrepreneurship program and our minority business assistance program that we haven't talked about, have supported cosmetic industry, consumer packaged goods. So combining the two would be great. I would certainly be interested in exploring that.
Okay, thank you, Barb. So do I reach out to Chandler or Rory as on the screen?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always the bottleneck, so I'll tell you all day long that you're better off reaching out to the two of them.
Oh, sounds great. I told my team the exact same thing yesterday.
Yeah, you'll get nowhere with me fast. I have the best of intentions.
I totally understand. Thank you.
Also, Janelle, you can go onto ybi.org/evolve and you can get more program information there as well. Any other questions for the chat? Unmute.
I have a question, but I want to let the audience ask their questions first.
Go ahead. Go
All
ahead.
right. My question is for, I believe it was Scott, about the venture capital piece. I wonder if you could relate. I really enjoyed your presentation and I want to validate a whole lot of that's true. from what I've seen, but I wondered if you could comment on how it's different with manufacturing versus other products. Is there a level of difficulty with manufacturing that doesn't exist with software, for example? So I'm wondering if you could just comment on that as specifically relates to manufacturing or advanced manufacturing.
The best way that I know of to say this is that people are looking for the highest financial returns that they can get when investing in early stage companies, and that the gold standard for the highest returns that you can achieve are recurring revenue software companies. Recurring revenue is better, software has higher margins. The capital needs are generally relatively low compared to other things. So advanced manufacturing is more difficult relative to the gold standard because it generally takes more capital. It's generally not a recurring revenue structure. It's generally lower gross margin business model. So it's harder to get the capital, because the simplest thing is that investors can put money goes into everything. Everybody needs money. So the question is, well, are they going to put their money into the advanced manufacturing company? Or are they going to put their money into the software company? Which one provides them the best return?
Thank you. I knew that, but I wanted to hear you say it more elegantly than I can, because that's what I've seen as well.
Kimberly, since you are speaking, why don't you talk a little bit about the startup that you went through and the trials and tribulations of
Oh my.
entrepreneurship?
Who's got the time? So I had my own, I guess, put the video on. I had my own startup journey. Video's not working. I guess that's fine. I've had my own startup journey with a 3D printing polymer-based startup from 2015. And the biggest challenge was, first of all, getting banked, like getting anyone to give you money. That's why I asked Scott the question. And then the next challenge was, most of my time was spent explaining what 3D printing is and what the value proposition is. 80% of the sales was that, and then people would take 6 to 8 months or longer to make the decision to buy something. And whether that was a service, a material, or really the materials, if you had 3D printing, the materials sold themselves. But if you wanted to buy 3D equipment on the industrial side, or you wanted to buy service, that was a longer thing. So I think I would just say the sales cycle is a huge challenge. But I will also say that the things that saved us so much time was working with, the YBIs of the world who got us connections, the America Makes of the world, and then the ESP program that Glenn mentioned. You want to be involved in an ESP program. They will help you with legal issues. Of course, we had a lawsuit, California Prop 65. We sold like 3 spools of materials without the warning, and it cost me $50,000 to get out of that. It was extortion. It was horrible. But you get access to legal support. You get access to marketing if you need your materials translated into another language. So I'm just saying, reach out to the YBIs and the Jobs Ohio and the ESPs and the OAIs of the world. When we got our first SBIR, we reached out to a person. No one here was affiliated with this individual, but it was somebody I had worked with who's a professional grant writer who actually understood how to do SBIR grants. I only needed help one time to figure it out. And now, in that company, I was able to do it many times by myself, but those resources were critical. Getting to know them, get into the mindset and the ethos of how those grants occur, because they're non-dilutive funding, and getting yourself involved with the university so you can get cheap talent that's really smart and wants to help you solve your problem. As a small business, all those things are super important, as I'm sure you all know. Anyway, these things are at your fingertips. Please use them.
And Kimberly, just to build upon that, something that I didn't touch upon, we do have some pretty deep relationships with major corporations. Stephanie alluded to the project that we did with Goodyear. We worked very closely with Hometown Products, which has commercialized the X1 sand core printers. They are now the largest provider of 3D printed sand cores in the world. I think they own 15 or 16 different machines, and are a tremendous success story to the value proposition of America Makes and the local ecosystem that we have. But also Juggerbot 3D, the OEM that is building the medium-sized additive manufacturing equipment, now has a relationship with a billion-dollar company called BDI, Bearing Distributors Inc., based in Cleveland. They sell all things industrial related, and they are working with Juggerbot to create a model to commercialize the Juggerbot machines by deploying them at their customers around the country, so that they can, instead of having inventory sitting on the shelf, can send a file and that can be printed and put into production, maybe as a Band-Aid for a broken part until the final part comes in, or just a hard to source part. So lots of relationships with a lot of different organizations. It builds upon the relationships that we have with the America Makes members. We are constantly trying to deepen our relationship to industry in order to create the opportunities from our key customers, get technical feedback, conduct ugly baby sessions to help you understand really what your value proposition is and whether industry is buying what you're selling. Those are really critical, I think, for the success of the incubator and the program that we have. So any last questions? I think we're pretty close to wrapping up. Well, thank you all. Thank you to our presenters, to Chandler and Rory and Stephanie for helping to pull this together. And thank you to everybody who made it through that very rough first 5 minutes while we were making the connection happen. We will send out the information. Please give us feedback about other topics that you'd like to hear about. Certainly, I think that there's lots of things that we can drill down into more deeply. We thought that this would be a good overview of the different programming, but we can certainly do longer sessions on individual topics, and would like to know what you're interested in. And by all means, let us know if you'd like to have a conversation about some specific opportunities. So with that, thank you again and have a good rest of your day.